Welcome to Screw the Commute, the entrepreneurial podcast dedicated to getting you out of the car and into the money with your host, lifelong entrepreneur and multimillionaire, Tom Antion.
Hey everybody, it's Tom here with episode 290 of Screw the Commute podcast. We're here with Chris Sajnog. He's a former Navy SEAL, and I've learned a lot just from watching his videos. And he's going to talk about rebranding and listening to your audience and giving them what they want. And he's got some really great stuff that'll help you in many areas of your life. So I'll bring him on in a minute. And I hope you didn't miss episode 289. That's one of my Monday training sessions where I teach you something that's either made me a load of money or saved me a load of money. And in that episode, I covered 17 website mistakes that almost everybody's making out there, and I don't want you to make them. So make sure if you missed that, you go back and listen to episode 289. Now, if you'd like to hear your own voice here on Screw the Commute, if the show's helped you out at all or in business or given you ideas to help you start a business, we want to hear about it. So visit screwthecommute.com and look for a little blue sidebar that says send voicemail. Click on it, talk into your computer or your cell phone, and let us know how the show's helped you, and put your website in there so we can give you a big shout out on a future episode in your voice. All right, make sure you grab a copy of our automation ebook. This ebook has allowed me to handle up to 150,000 subscribers and 40,000 customers without pulling my hair out. We sell this for $27, but it's yours free for listening to the show. And you can get it at screwthecommute.com/automate free, screwthecommute.com/automate free. And of course, everything we have today and Chris's great stuff will be in the show notes for episode 290. To get to a specific episode, you go to screwthecommute.com/ and then the episode number. This one is 290. All right, well, we're sitting here in the middle of this pandemic, and I tell you what, the searches on Google for work from home are going crazy. And I've been preaching this since 1996 when I started teaching internet marketing, and I've been selling on the commercial internet since it began in 1994. And a lot of people are calling me up, Tom, I wish I'd have listened to you. Yeah, I bet you do right now, because these are legitimate techniques you can use to create a lifestyle business right from home. So we have an entire school. I have the only licensed dedicated internet marketing school in the country. It's at imtcva.org. And it teaches these nuts and bolts skills. And it'd be the greatest legacy gift you could ever give to grandchildren, or your kids, nephews, nieces, because it'll give them a real skill that within a few months they can actually be making money rather than a long college that they're saddled with debt and they're competing for jobs at Starbucks. So check it out at imtcva.org, and make sure you pick up a copy of our podcast app too at screwthecommute.com/app. That's APP, where you can take us with you on the road. All right, let's get into the main event. My guest today was a master training specialist in the Navy, and he was hand-selected to write the U.S. Navy SEAL Sniper Manual. And he used this experience plus 4 years of studying neuroscience and elite performance to develop the SEAL training system. That's science-based education for accelerated learning, and which he uses to help others learn, live, and lead like warriors. And he's a proud father and the author of 3 best-selling books and the owner of Center Mass Group LLC. It's a 100% service-disabled veteran-owned small business in San Diego, California. Chris, are you ready to screw the commute?
Let's screw it, Tom.
There we go. So thanks so much for coming on, man. I really appreciate it. You got some killer stuff there, and I don't want to use a pun there, but the accelerated learning is so important nowadays with all the stuff being thrown at everybody. Tell everybody what you're doing.
So right now I'm teaching people to learn, live, and lead like warriors. And as you mentioned, using the SEAL training system that I developed. And it actually allows people to learn at home, which has really been, as you also said, helpful during this time when people can't get out of the house. And I originally developed it for shooting, to teach people how to shoot so they could learn to do that at home. And that's called The New Rules of Marksmanship. And I just published my latest book, The New Rules of Marksmanship, on that. But I've taken that system and expanded it to be able to teach people to learn anything. And I do it by teaching people to become warriors. And I teach people how to meditate. I teach mindset stuff. I teach people how to develop habits and maintain habits and rituals, diet, exercise, everything that it takes to become a warrior. That's what I do.
And you've expanded it far past shooting, because that's kind of what you were known for a long time, right?
Yeah, that's where I started, and it was interesting, and that's where the shift came from, because I started getting testimonials from my online students, and they all basically said the same thing. They're like, yeah, I'm shooting better than I ever thought possible. But what's even better than that is I'm a better father, I'm a better person, I'm a better husband, I'm getting more done. And, I just started hearing this, and I realized it wasn't what I was teaching, because I was teaching the same things I was teaching from as a Navy SEAL to civilians, and the civilians just weren't getting it. And it wasn't what I was teaching, it was who I was teaching. And I realized if I can make people into warriors, then they can learn and do anything they want.
Now, this was a little surprise to you, right? So you actually had to listen to the feedback rather than just keep hammering the same old way, right?
Yeah, definitely. And it's also like a give and take, because as I started learning this and realizing, oh, this is, what I need to be doing with the people, because I still incorporate firearms training, and I essentially use that as a tool that a warrior can choose to use or not use. So it's basically one of the paths that you can take. And you could also, take a golf club or a computer, or, your small business, whatever it is that you want to become a warrior in, you can do that. But there was also the other side where I had to learn how to tell people, like, that just wanted to learn how to shoot, like, why is it important to meditate? Why is your mindset so important? Why do diet and exercise come into play when most people just think of shooting and they think of, pulling a trigger? And it's really much more than that.
Well, one of the things I got from you for feedback is, are you really focusing, on the front sight stuff that we do with shooting? And wow, it really opened my eyes. It says, oh, maybe I'm not focusing. So is that a big part of the system?
Yeah, that's huge, and it's funny. That's definitely one of my top videos. I think it's probably got a couple
A
million
couple of
views
million
now,
views, yeah.
which is great. But yeah, that's I call it the aha moment, because people are generally taught in shooting to, they say, oh, focus on the front sight, and people will look at the front sight and they think they're focusing.
Hmm.
And as you learn from that video, you're not focusing. So I actually teach people how to focus. I don't just say focus. And it's the same thing I'm doing now with, my leadership training and living like a warrior. Is, I don't just tell people, hey, go live like a warrior. I, give you solid steps on, how to do it, and, why your diet can affect being a warrior. What I just did, some training with my members on sleep and how important sleep is. And like, sleep alone, people don't realize, if you get less, they did a study, and if you sleep less than, I think, 5 hours a night, maybe it was like 5 or 6 hours a night, you forget 75% more information than people that get 8 hours of sleep.
Wow. Wow.
So if you're learning something on day number one, and that night you get, 5, 6 hours of sleep, you're going to forget the stuff. So learning anything, whether it's shooting or running a business or whatever it is, you need to remember it for it to be effective. So those are the types of things that I teach. And, it's sometimes hard to get, especially people who are, hard, like, they just want to learn to shoot. They don't want to learn to meditate. And here I am trying to explain, well, hey, you need to get a good night's sleep. I sound like somebody's mother, like, hey, get a good night's sleep. And
Now, how do you balance that with all the stuff that we see on TV when you bust the butts of all these, Navy SEAL recruits, and they're sleep deprived, they can barely see straight?
Well, yeah, they don't remember what happened most of that time, but
maybe that's good.
yeah, that's part of, and I get into that like when I teach exercise and stuff. But the reason we do that, it's just a filter. It is to push
Right.
people beyond their limits to see if they're going to quit. And I remember one time, when I was going through SEAL training and it was Hell Week, and where I was running around with boats on my head. And I remember one day just thinking, I'm like, man, I'm going to die right now. Like, I literally think I'm going to die. And I decided in that moment, I was like, well, I would rather have people point down at my dead body and go, Chris didn't quit, than to watch me walk away and go ring the bell.
Oh, right. Yeah. So, and what percentage make it?
It's about 25%.
25% at max. Wow. Yeah. So a lot of people walked away from that, but it's probably better they walk away then than when you're really counting on them, I guess.
Yeah, definitely.
So let's take you back. Were you an entrepreneurial kid? I mean, how'd you end up coming up and getting into the service? Did you ever have a job? What was it like when you were coming up?
Well, my main job as a kid was getting in lots of trouble, and I was really good at that job. I had several jobs as a kid. My main ones were, I was a personal trainer at a club. I don't even know if it's around anymore, called Vic Tanny. But I worked there, and then my stepfather had a trucking company. So he owned his own business. So I think that's kind of where I got the idea that, it's okay to run your own, to have your own business. You don't have to work for somebody else.
Was this in California?
I grew up in Wisconsin.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah. And yeah, so I did that for a while, and then I ended up leaving home for reasons we don't really need to get into, probably.
Okay.
But I was like 16, and I ended up, even longer story, living in Ohio, and I got thrown in jail for grand theft auto. Even longer story, didn't happen, but yeah. So then I got out of jail. I didn't have a car. I didn't have a place to stay. And I bumped into a Navy recruiter, and he said, hey, I've got food and a place to stay for you. I was like, all right, where do I sign up? Yeah. So, I always like to say,
I'm surprised you didn't have a car, because you were able to steal them.
Yeah. Well, the short story is I wrote a guy a check, and I drove my car. He worked on my car, and I drove it out of his lot, and it broke down, and I stopped at a payphone, and I called my bank and canceled payment on the check.
Okay. All right. That's different.
So his brother was the judge in this small town.
Oh, man.
So he just had me arrested.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. So that was fun.
Okay. So the Navy guy's standing there with food and a place to stay.
Yeah. So he was a corpsman, so a medic in the Navy. And he said, yeah, you should be a medic, because on ships, we get air-conditioned spaces that most people don't get. You don't have to chip paint. And I was like, all right, that sounds good. And then I went to boot camp, and my company commander was a diver, like a deep sea diver. And he liked me, and he said, oh, you should go to dive school and be a dive med tech. So I did that. And then when I was going through dive medicine training in Panama City, Florida, on the gym there on base, there was a group of SEALs that would work out, and I'd work out with them on the weekend, and I got to know them. So when I graduated first in my class out of dive school, I got to pick wherever I wanted to get stationed, and they happened to have an opening working with these SEALs as their medic. And so I chose that, worked with them, and then they liked me enough to send me down to Puerto Rico to continue working with the SEALs there. And
So
then,
you're not a SEAL if you're a medic for SEALs. Is that, you're not a SEAL
correct.
yet, right? Okay.
Yeah. So I did like diving medicine. I'd treat people in hyperbaric chambers
Mm-hmm.
and stuff. So as I was getting to my end of my rotation in Puerto Rico, my detailer was going to send me to either ship A or ship B. And I did not want to be on a ship because I'd been in the Navy like 4 years now and never been on a ship. So everyone was like, "Oh, why don't you go to SEAL training?" And I was like, "Okay."
Did you know what you were getting into?
Oh, I knew it. Yeah,
Okay.
I had spent 4 years working
Okay.
directly with SEALs now, and pretty interesting little side story is the master chief that I worked for in the medical department was best friends with the detailer, the person who gives your orders to wherever your next duty station is. And he called up the detailer and said, "Hey, give Chris orders to Buds. He wants to go to SEAL training." And 2 hours later, a message came back that I had orders to SEAL training. So pretty interesting, because most people, when they want to go become a SEAL, it takes about 2 years.
And you get ready
The
for it, right?
process. Well, yeah, not just ready for it, but you have to do tests, you have to do interviews, you
Right,
have to
right.
do, you have to wait for, all these things. You usually get denied several times. And I didn't take any tests to get in. I didn't do any interviews. It was, just a message that, a phone call and a message back, "Hey, you got orders." It's like, oh. But yeah, those 4 years of working with SEALs and having many SEAL friends before going to SEAL training made going through SEAL training very interesting, because at least once a week there would be some SEAL that shows up and would, we'd be doing PT out on what we call the grinder, and I'd hear, "Sajnog, get up here." And I look up and I see next to the instructor a SEAL that I know. And they're like, "Hey, Chief Smith here?" "Hoo-yah." So hoo-yah is the universal word that you say for everything, and
Right.
it means everything depending on how you say it. And so they're like, "Yeah, well, Chief Smith said that you said Buds was going to be easy, and said you could kick all of our asses. Did you say that?" "Hoo-yah." You can't say no,
Right, right.
because then you're calling him a liar. So, "Okay, why don't you go down to the beach and see how much sand you can come back with in your mouth?" "Hoo-yah."
Oh,
Yeah.
man.
So yeah, it was fun.
Oh, gee. So here's a little sidebar from what would be the most common injury you would have in for SEALs?
Oh, I don't know if there really is a common injury. I know in like training, people get ITB, their IT band like locks up and gets strained or pulled.
What is that now?
Um, it's called your IT band. It's if the side of your leg is ever tight, it's the long band that
Oh, I
runs
never even
along.
heard of that. Wow. Yeah.
Yeah, like do a foam roller on the side of your leg,
Uh-huh.
and when you scream in pain, that's because your
That's it.
IT band is too tight.
Got it.
But yeah, we also call it "I tried Buds" with ITB.
Did you get a lot
Um,
of blisters?
yeah, definitely a lot of blisters. Running in boots and
And in
wet
wet clothing seems like that'd be
feet.
really nasty to to get
Yeah,
around.
yeah. I got my share and a lot of other people's shares of injuries while I was in. I'm actually 100% disabled due to many different things, but I did winter warfare, so I have cold injuries to my feet, and I had a parachute that didn't want to open all the way, so that was a hard landing
Yeah.
that made me an inch and a half shorter instantly. But I still work out every day and try to make sure people don't know that I'm have any disabilities unless I tell them.
Right. So when did you you were an instructor then? You turned into an instructor for SEALs, right?
Yeah. So the first time, well, one thing when you're a SEAL, so I was a SEAL medic, a corpsman. So I would teach other SEALs in my platoon medicine, and the radio men would teach us how to use radios, and so everybody is a teacher
Mm-hmm.
in the SEAL. But it was when I came back to California the second time to um, run the sniper program here, and they sent me to the instructor course. So I officially became an instructor, and then you have to do certain things like develop curriculum and stuff to become a master training specialist. So then I got that, and yeah.
All right.
So
So then I remember, I think reading or hearing somewhere where there was something with you decided your kids needed you more than the SEALs did. So what was the transition out like? And did you know you were going to go into a business right away, or just looking for a job, or what?
So I had came back from deployment, and I was not planning on getting out. I was planning on re-enlisting for 5 more years and getting a tax-free $250,000 bonus. But when I got back home, my kids, they were really young. They were 2 and 4 at the time. They didn't know who I was, and they were scared of me. And the 4-year-old wasn't eating, and everybody's trying to get him to eat. And then finally one day he said, "Dad, if I eat, I'll grow up. If I grow up, I'll become a daddy. If I become a daddy, I'll have to leave my family."
Oh man.
So
Jeez.
yeah. So the next day I went in and submitted my retirement papers.
That's a $250,000 statement for sure right there.
Yeah.
Little one.
Yeah. They're my mission in life now.
Well, that's what a warrior would do, right?
Yep.
All right. So but did you know what you were going to do then? Because you were planning on 5 more years in the service, and now what?
No, I didn't know what I was going to do. I had a year to figure it out, because the last year that I was in, I got 9 surgeries kind of back to back.
Yikes.
I had both ankles rebuilt, both knees, surgery on my back, my shoulder. Luckily, the guy that I was working for at the time, I had saved his life, so he didn't make me come in to work for a year. So I spent that year, number one, writing a book on how to do your VA disability rating, because it's kind of a hard system. So that's still a book yet to be published.
That was your first book?
Yeah, I haven't published it yet.
Okay.
It's just kind of in the wings waiting, but my plan is to publish it and then just donate the money to veterans.
Nice.
But I was working with thermal scopes as a SEAL sniper, and I knew one of the companies that makes these thermal scopes, that they also made thermal cameras, and he's telling me, "Oh, you could do energy audits on houses."
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, "Huh, okay, I could do that. I'd walk around somebody's house
Right.
and look at their roof and see where they need insulation, and it sounds good." So I started San Diego Heat Home Energy Audit Technicians. I love acronyms. And I
mean, you started a company, or you worked for another company?
No, I started a company.
Okay, so you didn't take a job in the meantime. All right.
No, so I did that, and I realized pretty quickly, and it was kind of odd, that living in California, people talk about how energy efficient they want to be and how much it means to them to be environmentally whatever. People would not pay $300 to save thousands of dollars a year on their energy bill. So that was kind of a flop, and probably a lot of it, now that I understand marketing, was that I didn't no marketing then. I was like, hey, I got a great product. How come nobody knows about it?
Mm-hmm.
So that didn't pan out. And then I got a job working for the Coast Guard. And originally as a contractor, I was teaching one of their small units here in San Diego called Pactaclet, how to do boardings. And they would do boardings for like drug boats that they suspected. And, so as a SEAL, this was very common for us to do.
Mm-hmm.
And so teaching them was kind of a no-brainer. And I did that for 6 years.
That was a job or freelance gig?
No, that was a job. I
Okay.
was a full-time contractor, and then it turned into a government position. So I was a GS-13, and I was leading their training, and I tried getting them to train safer, like not point loaded weapons at me. And they weren't doing anything about it. So I became a government whistleblower. And then I learned that the government whistleblower agency is in charge of apparently protecting the government, which if you think about it, makes sense. Like, why would a government agency actually do something to another government agency? So they did something to me and they fired me.
Uh-huh.
And yeah, so luckily during that time,
Better than getting shot, though.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and it's like I would do it, every time, and it goes back to what would a warrior do?
Right.
Would a warrior, like let
it slide? Yeah. Then somebody's
Oh, yeah.
dead, and it's on your head.
Yeah. So they wanted me to lower the standards, and and I just wouldn't do it. And they wanted me to pass people that were unsafe with firearms, and I wouldn't do it. So yeah, in the end, they ended up firing me. Nothing I could do about it except be the man that I want to be. But during that time that I was working there, I had started a blog, and I just started, posting stuff that I knew about shooting on there.
What year was this, roughly?
2012. No, 11.
Okay.
2011. And yeah, so I started this, and my plan was to just kind of start doing firearms training for law enforcement and civilian kind of on the side. And I had a marketer buddy of mine who said, "Oh, you should write a book." And I was like, "Oh, I can't write a book. What are you talking about? That's crazy." He's like, "Dude, you wrote the SEAL Sniper Manual." And he's like, "And look at your blog. You have a 7-series blog posts, a series of posts here on marksmanship." And I was like, "Yeah." He's like, "Well, you write an introduction, and you write a summary, and you make a cover for it, and then you have a book." And I'm like, "Oh, okay." So I did it, and he's like, "Okay, now make it into a PDF and put it on your website and charge $47. And I was like, there is no way anybody in the world is paying $47 for a PDF of, me teaching them how to shoot.
I'm
like
laughing because this is what I've been doing forever,
Yeah.
even $97 sometimes for a PDF.
Yeah. So I'm like, all right, sure, whatever, I'll show you it doesn't work. And I woke up the next morning, and I didn't even tell anybody about it. And I think I had like 10 sales, and then it just kept growing from there. And then people said, "Oh, do you have, a paperback copy?" I'm like, yes, let me get that for you. And then it turned into, an ebooks and stuff, and it kind of went from there, and that's where the business grew. And the online training part came because when I was writing the book, I was thinking, man, this is so hard to teach people how to do some of these things without video. And what I did is I'm like, oh, I'll just put some links to videos in there. So I put video links in my
Mhm.
book, and then that turned into, register for the book, and to get these free videos, and then and you get this course, and you go through the course, and if you finish the course, you take a quiz, and then you get a certificate, and yeah, it's great. And then that turned into me getting picked up by a publisher, and then the publisher ended up, I don't know what they did, but they ended up giving me the rights back to my book, and that was Navy SEAL Shooting, which is my second book. Yeah, and then now my third book, New Rules of Marksmanship, and all three of them at one point have been bestsellers.
Yeah, and now you mentioned a while back in this conversation the word member, my members. So you have a membership site?
Yes.
What's that about?
Yeah. It's at chrissajnog.com, and
spell your name for him. We'll have it in the show notes too, but it's not the easiest in the world.
Yeah, normally what I tell people to search for is Navy SEAL Shooting, and then you'll see my name there, and then you'll be able to find my website. But it's Sajnog.
Sajnog.
Yep.
There you go. And so what's the membership site all about? What's in that?
It is me teaching the new rules of marksmanship, and it's expanded now because of, what we discussed with me learning and stuff. And I'm teaching generally, how to live like a warrior. And, the focus tool inside there is, firearms. But probably half or more of my posts do not have to do with firearms training. They have to do, with other parts about being a warrior.
So somebody can get in this that's not really a gun person.
No, and that's I have lots of people that are in there that aren't. I know I have somebody on the New York Philharmonic Orchestra that is in there. I have a coach for a professional hockey team. I don't know hockey. I think it's like the Red Wings or something. Is that if that's a team? And several other golfers. The Titleist Performance Institute is using my training process, the 7-step process, to teach professional golfers. So they'll be able to take, say, they look at a golfer's swing and they say, oh, you need to change this in your golf swing to be able to, be more effective. And what my process does is it teaches them how to ingrain that skill faster than they normally would be able to, using my seven steps.
Awesome. All right, we've got to take a brief sponsor break. And when we come back, we'll ask Chris to give us a couple of the tips how we can start becoming a warrior, and then we'll find out where we can get a hold of that newest book of his. So folks, about 20 years ago, I kind of turned the internet marketing guru world on its head. People at my level were charging 50 or 100 grand up front to teach people. And I knew a lot of these guys. If you gave them 50 or 100 grand, you'd never see them again. So I thought, that's too risky for a small business. And I'm a small business advocate. I have a consumer advocate show in development in Hollywood, and it's called Scam Brigade. And I thought, this is no good. So I said, what I'm going to do is charge about 10% of that as an entry fee, and then charge a percentage of profits that was capped, so they wouldn't be stuck with me forever. And plus, they know I wouldn't disappear on them, because for me to get my 50 grand, they had to make 200 grand. And so everybody just loved this and flocked to the program. And 1,700 students later, it's still going strong, and it's got lots of unique features. You have an immersion weekend where you actually live in our retreat estate here. You have probably the biggest thing is nobody at my level will even talk to you, let alone teach you anything. So we have one-on-one tutoring on unlimited basis with me or all of the subject matter experts that work for me that I've trained. So you can't get that anywhere else, to have a team like this that has skin in the game and is interested in your success. So, and you also get a scholarship to my internet marketing training school, which you can either gift to someone or use yourself. And like I said, we've got one girl, she's making $6,000 a month on the side. And her dad had spent 80 grand on her education, and she was working some crap job. And 4 months into the school, she's up to $6,000 a month. Hasn't even finished the school yet. So that's a possibility with these really hardcore skills that are in high demand. So if you're interested in checking that out, visit greatinternetmarketingtraining.com, greatinternetmarketingtraining.com. It's the longest running, most successful mentor program in this field ever. And I triple dog dare you to find somebody that would match it. So greatinternetmarketingtraining.com. All right, let's get back to the main event. Chris Sajnog is here, and he's got an accelerated learning system. He's got a massively powerful past, and we all want to thank him for his service. We didn't get into any of the missions because that's classified material, but I'm sure he's done a lot of good things to help our country. And he paid a lot of physical price for it, so we thank him from the bottom of our hearts. We're very pro-military around here. So Chris, give us a couple tips on how we can start our trip towards being a warrior, and then how they get in your membership program and where they find their book.
So my first tip, I actually just did with my members. I called it Warrior Week, and I did a live Zoom meeting with them every day, and for 5 days, and I taught them these 5 things. So the first one was having a morning routine that you go through, and like I've found, and I'm sure you know, every successful entrepreneur knows, if you don't have a morning routine, you know, your whole day is shot. So teaching people how to do this is critical, and I had a lot of fun with it.
And that's not eating donuts, is either. Probably not on the routine.
No, I do intermittent fasting, so I don't eat until
noon,
night.
right?
But yeah, so I didn't know what I was going to do originally, and I was thinking about it the night before, and then I said, man, what if I just wake up and hop on my phone on Zoom and literally like get out of bed and walk through my routine? And that's what I did.
Beautiful.
So it was good. I got up, I drank my special water that I make, and made coffee, and
you make your own water.
I add stuff to it. I add some trace minerals, a little bit of honey, and some lemon juice, and it's warm water.
Got it.
But I drink that, and then I do contrast baths. I have a hot tub, and then I have a cold tank.
So there's another book right there. Morning routines for warriors.
Yeah. Got lots of them.
Yeah.
I got a lot of ideas. It's my marketing guy always makes fun of me. He's like, man, you have too many ideas. Like, yeah, I know. So I did that. So that would be my first tip, is if you don't have a morning routine, get one. And there's I have no affiliation with this, but there's an app called Productive that I started using, and it's a great tool for building habits, because you put in, you know, I want to get up at this time, I want to blah blah blah, do all those things. So that's been helpful. So having a morning routine, having a set things you do, like, and also that routine, my morning routine starts in the evening when I write out my, you know, plan for the day, and I write out literally minute for minute what I want to be doing. And then what I do after part of my morning routine is meditating. And after I meditate, I'll visualize. And what I'm visualizing is my perfect day. Like what am I doing? I'll picture myself, you know, like this morning, I pictured myself doing this interview, you know, I'm sitting at my desk and got my microphone here, got my coffee there, and, you know, here we are. And by just visualizing what you're doing, what you want to get done during that day, you are much more likely to actually get it done. And there's studies out there that, show that, and I'm sure there's some percentage, but it works.
Well, can I throw in a little sidebar on visualization? Because
Yeah, of
I
course.
never used to be big on this kind of stuff until when I owned a nightclub for 6 years back in Morgantown, West Virginia. It was all, we were out in no man's land. We had 2 gunfights, and the sheriff came out the next day to see how it was, see what went on. This was that kind of place. But people at the local lake would want to take me skiing all the time, and I can't even swim. I'm talking to a Navy SEAL. I can't even barely swim. And so I wore 2 life jackets in case one malfunctioned. So they're dragging me with this underpowered boat. I'm giving myself an enema the whole way, all summer, just knocking. And you probably know this saying: the only difference between water and cement is water is wet. So I'm like bruised up and just knocked all over the place. But at the last day, I got up and went about a mile down the lake, and crazy. So then that was the end of the season. The next season, or all that winter, I just kept kind of thinking about that I finally got up and I went a mile down the lake. And the next season, the first day they took me out, I got up and went 5 miles down the lake. That's the power of visualization, because there was no real reason that I could go 5 miles when I couldn't even get up, all summer, the time before. So that's visualization, very powerful.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Your mind doesn't know the difference whether you visualized it or you actually did it, because when it's part of how I teach is, and it's because when you do a skill, whatever that skill is, you're forming a memory of it. So if you just visualize it, you're forming a memory in the same way. And it's a huge tool.
Amazing.
And it's a lot cheaper to learn.
That's for sure. And a lot less enemas. So, all right, give us one more tip.
Well, I talked about the importance of sleep. So I will throw in exercise, because if your body doesn't have the energy to keep you going for, building a business and living the life of your dreams, sitting on the couch, if that's what you're doing is sitting on the couch, well, you're just going to keep sitting on the couch even longer and longer.
And they're saying sitting is the new smoking. I've heard that a lot of times.
Yep. Yeah. I have my Apple Watch that tells me to get up and move around every hour.
Do you have special aches and pains because of all the injuries you've had?
I do. Yes. I try to. I use meditation a lot. When I first retired, I was on painkillers, and I learned how bad those were. So I really got deep into meditation, visualization, the power of the spoken word. I stopped telling people that my back hurt. And, my wife would ask me, "Oh, how's your back doing today?" And I'm like, "Oh, it's doing great." Or I'd say, "Oh, it's doing better." And she'd be like, "No, really, like, tell me how it really is." And I would say, at first I'd be like, "Okay, stop asking me that. Okay. Because I'm always going to tell you it's doing better." And, so finally she stopped asking me that. But, when you stop telling people, your problems will go away, because, our minds, our reticular activating system, it remembers what you told yourself. So, if you want to tell yourself that you have a backache, then your body's going to go, "Oh yeah, I have a backache." And so I always tell people, tell yourself the story that you want in your life, and you'll have it.
Beautiful. All right. So here's some recap of some of those tips, folks. Get your sleep, which I used to poo-poo sleep, but now I changed my tune on that. Get a morning routine, visualize, and exercise. And he's got a whole bunch more. So how do they get into this membership site? And tell us more about the book.
Well, to get into the membership site, you go to my website, chrissajnog.com.
That'll be in the show notes, everybody.
Yeah. And if you want to find that, if you're just listening, then, in your car or whatever, when you get home or to work, you type in Navy SEAL shooting, and then you'll find my name, and then you'll be able to find my website. And then, yeah, you just go there, and there's a link right on top you'll see to join. And of course, if you want to test it out, I have my top tools for learning at home, and you can go to my YouTube channel and see what my training is all about. Yeah, I actually just went over, I think, 130,000 subscribers there.
Beautiful.
So that's pretty cool. But my new book is The New Rules of Marksmanship, a manifesto and training manual that will completely change the way you learn to shoot. And this book it's interesting that it's the third book I wrote, because the first two books are using this process, but I never actually gave the process out. So it's a spiral bound workbook, full color, and which I realized is not cheap to print. So.
Yeah, that's a learning curve for you there, that you learned fast.
Yeah. But, so it's not the cheapest book, but if you look at it as a training manual, it's got questions in it and exercises and all kinds of stuff. I'm super excited about it. Yeah, but it's available on Amazon. So I'm sure everybody can spell Amazon better, easier than my last name. So go to Amazon, New Rules of Marksmanship, and you can pre-order it. It's going to come out on July 12th.
Beautiful, beautiful. Well, Chris, thanks so much, man. Thanks not only for coming on this show, but thanks by a million times for what you've done for our country and for what you're doing for other people in the world with what you've learned. So really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you, Tom. Thanks for having me on.
Okay, so everybody, make sure you check the show notes, visit Amazon, pre-order that book, New Rules of Marksmanship, and then get into the membership, because when you run into somebody that's been there and done that and been beat up to the point where most of us would be, in a puddle on the ground crying, and they made it through, they know some things that we don't know. And so you can take advantage of that from guys like Chris. So again, thanks so much for coming on, and we will catch everybody on the next episode. We'll see you later.